You know, Dr. Corsi, I've personally been waiting all week for today's segment because I feel confident that nobody has been over this Inspector General Horowitz report as thoroughly as you. How are you today, Doctor?
I'm great. Looking forward to it as well. Jason, I have done a lot with it, and next week we're gonna get ready to have up on Amazon a version of we're gonna publish the entire Horowitz report with a foreword that I'm gonna write.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Hold on a second. There we go. I forgot to turn off the rebroadcast over there.
No problem.
There we go.
So
I'm ready.
So in addition to all of the books that you've written in your forthcoming coup d'etat book, you're going to publish a version of the Horowitz report that you'll write a foreword for. So give us an overview,
Yes.
Doctor. I think people are very excited to hear what you're going to be talking about when we go live in just under 30 minutes on our sponsor exclusive show on patreon.com/Jerome Corsi and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. I think everyone is really eager to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, first of all, the report that came out, I guess it was on Wednesday or Tuesday. Tuesday came out this week this is the Horowitz report, Inspector General Michael Horowitz on the FISA court abuses. And everybody's anticipating this, thinking, well, is it going to be a whitewash? Is it going to be hard hitting? And the initial reaction for the press was because the Horowitz conclusion was that there was a predicate, a reason for opening the counterintelligence investigation into 2016, this Operation Crossfire Hurricane,
right,
on Donald Trump's campaign, thinking it was connected to Russia for the Russian interference in the U.S. election, that there was a reason to open that. It sounds like it exonerated Comey. But yet, the report did not exonerate Comey, and when Horowitz appeared in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and was questioned by various of the senators, including Lindsey Graham, he made it clear that because of the limited nature of his charter as Inspector General, he could only interview people who were currently employed by the Department of Justice. He could not go in after people who were not employed. He couldn't look at a whole series of issues or research or subject matter out of this narrow definition as Inspector General of whether or not the procedures of the Department of Justice need to be changed in order to make it comply more with the way laws and regulations require the Department of Justice to operate. So he did not conduct a probable cause criminal investigation. Yet Horowitz made it absolutely clear that he still believes that there is reason to question whether Comey did commit crimes, because certainly as I think even the predicate of opening the case was wrong, and I'm going to go into that in detail, because I think this whole Russian collusion was a hoax from the beginning, and known to be a hoax from the beginning. But clearly, as it went on, these FISA court applications against Carter Page continued even after the FBI and the Department of Justice knew that the key evidence for this Russian collusion hypothesis, the Steele dossier, was not verified, it was not corroborated, and it was largely salacious and untrue. Yeah. Yet Comey continued to work to get FISA applications. Comey signed at least one of the FISA applications. And there's a lot of extremely damaging information into the report. I've been poring over it for the past few days. And the executive summary just basically touches the surface. But let me give you a couple of the highlights. For instance, it's clear that there were 17 major violations or omissions, or actually outright deception from the Department of Justice and the FBI in the applications submitted to the FISA court. Now, those are not just mistakes. Those are crimes, because you can't simply say, oh, we forgot, or we didn't get that right, or we didn't mean to do that. No, these are not excusable mistakes. These are crimes. And when you get deeply into the report, you find in chapter after chapter, Carter Page was under surveillance, but yet one of the key people in the Department of Justice at a key moment when they were trying to really have to represent Carter Page to the FISA court as possibly a Russian agent, there was a memo that came from the CIA. It said to the Department of Justice, wait a minute, Carter Page is actually working with us. Working
Isn't
with
that
us
weird,
as a...
Dr. Corsi?
Yes. Well, I knew that. In my book, Coup d'etat, almost everything in the Horowitz report I had already had in my book. I'd figured out what this case was, and I'd said that Carter Page, I interviewed Carter Page. I've gotten to meet him over the past couple of years, and I called him up and said, Carter Page, it looks to me like you were working for the Department of Justice and the CIA as an informant. He said, yes, I have been for a long time, 10 years or more.
Wow.
And the CIA told the Department of Justice this, and this particular FBI agent rewrote the memo. Instead of saying from the CIA to the Department of Justice, Carter Page is an agent, is a source for us, it was changed to say is not a source for us. And that's just a major, I mean, that's a felony. That one was actually referred for prosecution.
And
because it's of such a serious
Page,
nature
Doctor?
that it couldn't be excused.
What's your impression of
What was
Carter
that?
Page?
Well, I mean, Carter Page's life was destroyed by this because he was in Russia giving a seminar. He was trying to develop investments in oil and gas industries internationally. And with all this publicity, he lost his whole business contacts. Every aspect of his life, down to his past emails, were scrutinized by the FBI, as they did me, which is one of the reasons I've sued Mueller as well in federal district court and filed actually criminal charges against Mueller with the Department of Justice. I don't know if those will go anywhere, but the case is now it's before the Circuit Court of Appeals, my case against Mueller. And I think Carter Page is going to get a big law team together, and he's going to sue Mueller and the Department of Justice for millions of dollars, and I think he's going to win.
Has he said he's going to do that? Because I met him, and he said he was suing them for $1, which I did not understand.
Well, I think he's going to sue them for millions of dollars after this report came out, and after he had a chance to talk to his lawyers. His lawyers said, Carter, enough with the,
principle.
The Boy Scout principle.
Yeah.
We're going to do the right thing.
Right.
We're going to get these guys for $275 million or whatever.
Right.
But the conclusions, as you read the document, as you read the Horowitz report, I mean, just let me point out a few of these paragraphs where they say that we find it concerning that the Department and FBI did not require the FBI to consult with any department official in advance of conducting these are human sources, but operations involving advisors to a major party of the candidate's presidential campaign. And we find no evidence the FBI consulted with any department officials before conducting these confidential human source operations. Basically, that means they planted spies in Donald Trump's organization,
right,
without getting permission of the higher ups in the Department of Justice to do so. Okay, so these are the kinds of activities that were being engaged in, and you read paragraph after paragraph where it's clear that at a certain point after the first round of this was opening Operation Crossfire Hurricane, which involved George Papadopoulos and his conversation supposedly with this Maltese-born Italian professor named Mifsud, who said early on in May 2016 that Assange had these emails from Hillary Clinton and told this to Papadopoulos. Well, I don't think that conversation actually ever happened, and it was an intelligence operation. So it's made very, very clear here that the accuracy, or the fact that the suspicions were raised about the Steele dossier. Papadopoulos was used to open Operation Crossfire Hurricane, and then in October 2016, the first FISA application was granted by the FISA court to allow the electronic surveillance, and that was on Carter Page. But in addition to those two, Carter Page and Papadopoulos, the FBI was also deeply investigating Paul Manafort and General Flynn, possibly in 2015 or earlier. And all of this is really showing the animus. See, the first initial result was there was not a political bias. Well, as Lindsey Graham pointed out, number one, it doesn't take the predicate to open an investigation in the FBI is so small, especially in counterintelligence, where you're not opening a probable cause criminal investigation. You're just saying we have reason to suspect that there's foreign agents operating in the United States, and perhaps this U.S. person is working with them as an agent or as an asset. And because you're trying to protect national security, you're not trying initially in a counterintelligence operation within the FBI to produce an indictment. You're not operating under a probable cause standard. So it's easy to have justification to open a case. But the problem is when you go to the FISA court, you've got to have probable cause, because the court is not going to let you do electronic surveillance on a U.S. citizen without probable cause that now they are operating as an agent or somehow or other in a foreign espionage conspiracy. Mm-hmm. And the Steele dossier was increasingly questioned, and the FBI knew it was being questioned. They knew that Christopher Steele was leaking information to the press. They actually fired Christopher Steele, yet they continued even through the first year of the Trump presidency to conduct electronic surveillance on Donald Trump's campaign, and I think Donald Trump himself. I think I was involved in that, being under electronic surveillance, because once you begin with Carter Page, anyone in the network that Carter Page talks to, the collateral, you put them under electronic surveillance, and eventually, Carter Page talks to the guy who hired him, Sam Clovis, who was putting together this a team of advisors for Donald Trump in the 2016 election, and Sam Clovis talks to Manafort or who talks to Trump. So eventually you're doing electronic surveillance on Donald Trump. And it's hard to believe in all of this that the reason that the investigation was open and Donald Trump was never briefed on this. Hey, Donald Trump, you may have a Russian spy in your organization. Why don't you get rid of them? No, they thought Donald Trump was a Russian asset himself. So they never gave him one of those briefings you would give, like they gave Dianne Feinstein, Senator Feinstein, when the FBI had reason to believe she had a communist agent from China in her Senate office, and she fired the person.
It was rather
they did
ironic,
not do
Doctor,
that. Donald
she
Trump
probably already knew that, didn't she?
Well, I don't know that, but I mean, my point is that when you look at the actual nature of what the statements are, for instance, on this on page 11 XI, this is the forward, the executive summary. We further determined, this is Horowitz stating, that the Crossfire Hurricane team was unable to corroborate any of the specific substantive allegations regarding Carter Page contained in Steele's election reporting, which the FBI relied on in the FISA applications. Well, I mean, that's stunning, because that means a crime was committed. They illegally forwarded information on Carter Page to the FISA court without telling them that they could not corroborate the information. In fact, they put on verified on the top of the application, the first application that I've studied and seen.
Wow. And
the it just continues on with it. The 3 renewal applications continued on for Carter Page with authority clearly questioned. For instance, omitted in the FBI application of the FISA court was the fact that Steele's primary subsource, the primary source of information for all these allegations, was some guy he met in a bar.
Right. And there's a video of that guy. He's some Russian guy breakdancing like crazy. People have put that out recently. So it's not like this is some high-level government person. This is just some dude drinking in a bar. It's really kind of interesting, Doctor, that when we dig into the details here, as you're going to do when we begin our show on patreon.com/Jerome Corsi and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth in just 15 minutes. We're going to get into all these little details, but we're almost out of time for our preview, Doctor. So I want to make sure that we're going to have some time to ask questions. I think people are very curious about this Operation Orbis that Christopher Steele is involved in. It's some kind of private intelligence firm that's a contractor or whatever to the FBI. It seems strange that Christopher Steele is the director and joint founder focused on Russia, and this guy Christopher Burrows is in charge of the whole rest of the world. You'd think they might split it up a little bit more evenly.
Well, it turned out that Christopher Steele is one of the operatives who had experience on MI6. He was a British intelligence agent who served some time as an undercover agent in Moscow. Of course, he was found out right away, and he has a kind of a not as stellar history in Moscow. But he is an intelligence guy with a supposed specialty in Russia.
Now,
and so we'll get into that to some extent, because the key here is how his evidence lacked credibility, and as Horowitz pointed out, Christopher Steele told this Bruce Orr, a very high up authority in the Department of Justice, that he was determined to make sure that Donald Trump did not become president.
Right.
So the bias issue works its way back into the case. In other words, Horowitz was initially saying, because of his limits of what he can investigate, he didn't have a lot of statements of people. Comey was self-justifying. He said, well, maybe I didn't like Donald Trump, but that was not why I opened the Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Strozik and Pale had these horrible hate Donald Trump emails and text messages, but even they could say, but when it came time to do our job, we did it very professionally. Yeah. We didn't let our political opinions, which all human beings have, influence our professional judgments as law enforcement officers. Well, it's nonsense, because you can see them fabricating evidence, omitting critical evidence, not being presented to the FISA court, taking a whole series of affirmative actions which belie their statements that they weren't politically motivated.
Right.
And
well, Dr. Corsi, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've got only just a few minutes, and I want to make sure that people who are watching us right now on any of the Crowdsource the Truth channels are aware that when we do these YouTube previews, people can also watch them on Dr. Corsi's YouTube channel. If you're not yet subscribed to Dr. Corsi, please search YouTube for Jerome Corsi. And if you're watching on Dr. Corsi's channel, you can utilize Super Chat while you watch to send some support to the doctor. People can also go to CorsiNation.com. That's Dr. Corsi's home on the internet. That's his website where he's posting his daily news decodes. You can also access all of Dr. Corsi's social media from there, various sponsorship links, including patreon.com/Jerome Corsi. And of course, Dr. Corsi's library of books are available on Amazon.com. It's getting very close to Christmas, Doctor. Any of these books, or perhaps the entire library, would make an excellent gift for people who are fans of Donald Trump, or for people who need a sitting down and a talking to, right?
Well, thank you very much. And yes, especially take a look at my most recent Silent No More about my battle with the Mueller investigation and how they wanted to indict me, and I refused to take their plea deal, and yet I was not indicted.
Yep.
And that book, right now on Amazon, they're selling 3 copies for the price of 2, Silent No More. They've been running a special on that.
Huh.
And that's been a good deal. And also we will, in the full Patreon discussion today, also cover Nadler and his impeachment hearings, which I've been watching, and quite frankly, this is the weakest impeachment I think ever brought forward, because they're down to abuse of power, whatever that means, and also the obstruction of Congress, not even obstruction of justice. They can't find a crime.
They're inventing
Wheeler and the
things.
Democrats can't find a crime. Go ahead, Jason.
They're just inventing things on the fly, Doctor. But we're going to break here, and we'll carry on with the conversation over at patreon.com/Jerome Corsi and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. So we'll see everybody there. Thank you for this great teaser of what we'll be discussing, Dr. Corsi, and thanks everybody for watching.